So chapter 29 knocks. If you like depressing chapters with twist endings, then you are in luck. So in this chapter, we saw that um, purpose clauses can be introduced not only by ut or the negative ne, but also by relative pronouns. Those would be called relative purpose clauses, or also can sometimes be introduced by ubi. Right? Ubi you might not see as often, but you will see it in this book. Some examples and relative purpose clauses, they happen all the time in Latin. So those you're going to want to get used to. And also, perhaps more significantly, we saw the passive voice for the present and imperfect tenses. Right, the passive voice, the subject receives the action. Right, so not she drives a car, but the car is driven by her. Right. Um, and to form it in the present and the imperfect, of course, we saw that everything stays the same. Basically, you just change the endings to R, term, mer, mini, inter. Right? There is that one little unexpected twist in the third conjugation where it's ERIS when you're expecting perhaps IRIS. You don't remember that, you might want to look back to the Nearpod. So anyhow, let's look at the translation. I've underlined the verbs in red, of course. The passives I have highlighted in yellow, and the subjunctives in green. So the first paragraph. Nox erat, luna stellaeque in caelo sereno fulgebant. Tempus era quo homines quiescere solent. Romae tama nulla era quies, nullum silentium. So erat, of course, is the imperfect was, right? So night was or it was night. The moon, right? Que on the end puts a in the front, so the moon and the stars, fulgevant, were shining, right? Imperfect again, in the calm sky. That sounds like a wonderful evening. So caelo sereno, of course, ablative, object of space, because in means in here, not into. Tempus erat, so it was time. Tempus looks like it might be second or fourth, but that's another third declension neuter that happens to have a US ending. Tempus temporis. And so looks can be deceptive. So it was a time, okay, relative clause, quo, in which, right? In which people are accustomed to rest, quiescere. Rumai, this is locative, which we'll be talking about fairly shortly. So Romai, in Rome, however, nulla era quia, so there was no rest. Nullum silentium, no silence, no quiet. Okay, so it's a busy night in the big city. Magnus and domibus, right? Remember the preposition likes to go in the middle, right? They like to put the preposition in the middle of an adjective and a noun. So in the great houses, right? We know what great houses are, where the rich people live, right? So in the great houses where the rich people were living, sure enough, right? Habitabant, BA tells me it's imperfect. So where the rich people were living, Kinae splendidai consumebantur. So here's our first passive verb, right? We have BA, that's still the sign of the imperfect. But instead of NT, the ending is NTUR, enter. Right? R wrist term mer mini enter. Okay. So splendid dinners not were consuming, but were being consumed. Right? Passive. So they're receiving the action. The subject is receiving the action now. The splendid dinners were being consumed. Quibus sumptuosus a servis offerebatur. So sumptuous, delicious food was being offered by the slaves. Right? A servis. That's an ablative of agent. Right? We saw it before with passive participles. Works the same with passive verbs. Right? To the actions done by the slaves. That's a living thing, living things, living people here. So it's the ablative of agent. Right? If the action is done by a thing, it's still ablative of means, just like it was with participles. Okay. So ablative agent was being offered by the slaves. Venum optimum ab ancilis fundibatur. right? So vinum optimum, the best wine, fundibator, was being poured ab ancilis by the female slaves. So ablative agents again here of ab ancilis. Right? Fundibator, imperfect, and of course is passive tor. So not just T, but tor, so was being poured. Carmina Citaroides Peritissimis cantabantur. Okay, so cantabantur were being sung. What was Carmina songs? That makes sense. Citaroides Peritissimis. So by how skillful? Very skillful, right? Superlative. Very skillful Kithara players. Cantabantur could be played here since we mentioned they're playing Kitharas. So it could be songs were being played as well as sung. In Altis, autem insulis, right? So here we have but, right? Autumn is interrupting altis and insulis, right? Which are both together the object of in, right? So but kind of butts into place here, butting in here where it's not wanted, but nevertheless. So but in altis insulis, right? So we saw before where the preposition can come in between the two words. Sometimes something else can, right? So don't let that throw you. So but in the high insulis, apartment buildings, remember this adjective means verticality, can be deep, can be high, but of course apartment buildings aren't going to be deep, they're high, right? Too high, they would fall down sometimes. So in the high apartment buildings, nullae canae splendidae consumibantur, so no splendid dinners were being consumed. Nulli Kitaroidi audiabantur, no Kithara players were being heard. Ibi, remember there or then? Just mentioned a place, so probably there works here. So there, poor people, fame paene confecti. So paene, nearly, confecti, worn away by the ablative agent, by hunger. Vitam miserrimum agebant, so they were leading a very sad life. How sad? Very sad. Superlative, right? Double R's instead of double S's here, but still superlative. All right. First ILE will be some, and then the next one will be others. So some, verbis scribebant, were writing the accusative epistolos, letters, prepositional phrase, ad patrones, to their patrons. So some are writing letters to their patrons. Now you have a subjunctive subordinate clause here. Ut auxilium eorum peterent. Right, what use of the subjunctive is that probably going to be? The purpose clause. Why were they writing letters? To seek their help. So eorum from the id pronouns, genitive plural. So to seek the help of them, to seek their help. And that's the purpose of them writing, so it's a purpose clause introduced by ut here. Others, scalera ac forza committere parabant. So others were preparing to commit crimes and robberies. They're up to no good. Notice they're both neuter plural. Plural A is neuter. Accusative A is neuter. Prope forum, so near the forum. Magnus Trebitus audiabatur, so a great commotion, noise, audiabatur was being heard. Nam arcus magnificus in via sacra exteribatur, for a magnificent, wonderful arch, fourth declension, was being constructed in via sacra, in the sacred way. The road that goes right through the forum, the Roman forum. Ingens polyspaston arcui iminebat. So a huge crane, iminebat, was hanging over, right? This verb has a prefix, so not surprisingly, it takes a dative, was hanging over the arch. Fabri, relative clause describing the Fabri, the craftsman who were constructing the arch, diligentissime laborabant. They were working how hard? Very hard, very hard, or very carefully, very diligently. Okay, now some than others again, right? So some were sculpting, carving figures. Trying to think of a way to translate that that doesn't use the same word, but you get the idea. Figures on the arch. Arcu, I told you, fourth declension, right? Ablative here because it's object of a set space. Others were carving in, inscribing titulum, so you know, this the writing, the title. I keep using easy words here. At the top of the arch, the inscription where it's dedicated to the emperor, blah blah blah. So yeah, we just call it the title. So others were carving in or inscribing the title in fronte into the front. Arcus must be what case here? Genitive, right? Fourth declension genitive singular. It's being linked to fronte with its of idea, so into the front of the arch. Others, talebant, were lifting, where talo means lift. Remember that's irregular, right? Talo, talere, sestuli, sublatus. So we're lifting marble, which has to be third declension neuter singular, accusative, right? Because there's no em ending on it, right? There's no any accusative ending you would recognize, right? No um, no am. It's got to be a third declension accusative neuter singular. To the top of the arch. Everyone was working strenuously hard. For what purpose, I wonder? Ut arcum ante lucem perficerent. So in order to complete the arch, prepositional phrase, ante lucem, before light, so before dawn. Right? Purpose clause again. Why they are working so hard to complete the arch before dawn. For the Emperor Domitian, sounds like a nice guy. Verb is volebat. He wanted to dedicare, the infinitive, complementary infinitive, to dedicate. Can need an accusative. Dedicate what? Hunc arcum, this arch. What do we have left? Fratri Tito, clearly dative, right? Fratri has to be a third declension dative, so Tito is likely also dative. So dedicate the accusative to the dative, right? To his brother Titus. Post-radiate on the next day. Titum vivum oderat. Okay, oderat is pluperfect, right? But you can translate it like a perfect. So how is it pluperfect? It's like had gotten to hate. And the end result of that is he hated, right? So this is a verb you can generally translate a tense ahead. So that if it was perfect, right, if it was odit, the perfect form, you could translate that actually as a present. So we'll see later a poem of Catullus, Ode amo. So odi, second word, et, third word, amo. I hate and I love, right? So not I hate it and I love, but I hate and I love. Okay, so let me translate this as a perfect. But technically, it is pluperfect. Keep that in mind. Mortuum tamen honorare cupiebat. So he was desiring. Wait, translate this right. So he hated Titus alive. Right. So when his brother was alive, he hated him. Dead, however, am honorare cupiebat. He wanted to honor him. Anum, for censure cause. Right? Post positive can come first, but we want to translate it first. For Domitian, and the verb here with Domitian is going to be valebat. Right? Notice there's a relative clause. Skip that for the moment. So for Domitian, wanted to conciliare, win over to himself. Win over what? The accusative. The favor of the Roman people. So for Domitian wanted now, nunc, to win over for himself, sibi, right, reflexive, back to him, the favor of the Roman people. The Roman people, qui titum maxime delecterat, who had loved Titus Maxime very much. Don't worry, there's more. There's a whole another page. Hui gopri priora quintus haterius laturnianus redemptor notissimus. Okay, so priora was in charge of. Not surprisingly, it takes a dative. You see a prefix. Shouldn't be surprised to see a dative when you with that. So Quintus Haterius Laturnianus was in charge of the date of this work. And then apposition, Redemptor Notissimus, a very well-known contractor. Eanocte, ablative. And what use of the ablative would that be? Time when, right? So that night, Eanocte, he himself, ipse, fabros forens incitabat. Okay, so the verb, he was inciting, encouraging. The accusative, fabros, the workers. Forens, in a rage, right? Obviously, that's going with ipse, Haterius, right? So that night, he himself, in a rage, Furens, was urging on or encouraging or inciting the workers. Okay, adorat was present. We know that's imperfect. Also, Gaius Salvius Liberalis, we know him, but none of them are sick, right? Haterii Patronus, the patron of Haterius. So he takes care of Haterius. Qui eam in vicem flagitabat ut opus ante lucem perficeret. So who in vicem in vicem was nagging flagitabat eum him ut opus ante lucem perficeret. So to perficeret, complete, we just saw this verb on the last page, the work before dawn, similar to what we read on the last page. So what use of the subjunctive would that be? I think they're going for indirect commands here. Remember, there's a gray area between indirect commands and purpose, so it could be he was nagging him for the purpose of him completing the art support before dawn, or it could be kind of an indirect command trying to get him to do something, nagging him to do something. Right? I think Cambridge is going to want the answer indirect command for that, but we know that there's a gray area there. Anum again, 4. Anxious erat Salvius. Salvius was anxious, worried. Okay, quad, can it be which? Not bloody likely, right? There's no singular neuter for it to refer back to, not one that's easily identifiable. And Latin 2, it should be easily identifiable. So probably because here. So because, okay, imperatori persuaserat. Persuaserat, of course, what tense? Pluperfect, right? See, perfect stem, persuas plus erat was two past tense forms together gives you past in the past had persuaded the pluperfect. So because he had persuaded, and remember, takes a dative, had persuaded the emperor, object of a special verb, to do something, to praeficere, to put in charge of, so to put Haterius in charge of operi, this work. Right, so to put the accusative in charge of the dative. Not surprisingly, that dative comes into play here somewhere with a prefix in the verb, right? Ille igitur fabris, quamquam omnino defesi erant, identitam imperabat ne labore desisterent. Okay, so he, therefore, and this little quamquam clause will come back to that. So he, therefore, what? Imperabat, it's a verb I forgot to underline. All right, there we go. So he, therefore, imperabat, he was ordering. Remember that takes a dative, was ordering the workers. Ne labore desisterent, so not to stop from the work, not to stop work. So that'll be an indirect command, right? A negative indirect command, that's why it's introduced by ne. He's ordering them not to do something, not to stop work, not to stop off from work. Okay. Labore ablative, of course, right? So what you stop off from would be in the ablative. Gletus magistra verborum haterium lanere temptabat. So Gletus, the foreman of the workers. Magister means different things in different contexts. Could be captain, could be teacher, could be master. But he's a magister of the workers, so in English, probably foreman, Foreman is the best word for that. Was trying to Lenire Aetarium, was trying to soothe, soften, settle down Aetarius. Look, master, he said. Right? Domine, of course, vocative. Ecce, remember, is an imperative. I may have mentioned that sometime in the past, so it's an imperative. Look. Look, master, he said. We adiuamur, there's a passive. We forgot about those. So we are being helped by the craftsman, the ablative agent, who now. Oh, you know what? I forgot to go back to the quam clause. Let's go back to that. So although they were completely tired. Okay, so he therefore was ordering the craftsmen, although they were completely tired, not to stop off from the work. So we are being helped by the craftsmen, who now uh, nearly have completed the arch. So Piney nearly perfecerent, perfect tense, of course. The long E in the stem plus the errant ending or clues. And remember, you can use have, H-A-V-E, with a perfect. Had goes pluperfect, but have, H-A-V-E, works for the perfect. So who, maybe already here, who already have nearly completed the arch. The last letters of the title now are being inscribed. Again, well, that's a passive. I forgot to. Skipping all kinds of things here. Look, here's two more. Okay, so the last letters of the title now are being inscribed. The last figures are being sculpted. Okay, ultimi caememoris. That is a genitive singular. Right? And we saw this before. We saw it had to be neuter. So if ultimi, if it was going to be genitive, it would have to agree with a neuter, so it would have to have a second declension ending. So this can't be genitive going with this. Massi, right? Ultimi and massi probably go together. So what would that be? The last masses, big blocks, marmoris, of marble. So now they're putting a genitive in between two words. So putting something in between two things is a pattern that you should get used to. So here it is an adjective and a noun, and then the genitive that's being linked to the collective there is put in between. Right? That happens. So something to be on the lookout for. So ultimi massi, the final big blocks of marble, are being lifted to the top of the arch. So Paulo ante horum. Paulo here is a ablative degree of difference, something we'll see later. So a little before the first hour, right? So that's the first hour after the sun rises, right? So early in the morning. So the craftsman finally completed the arch. Finally. Abiurent omnes. So everyone went away. Ut quiescerent, to rest. Purpose clause, right? Why did they go away? To rest. Right? What tense of the subjunctive? Of course, that is imperfect. Polis per orb silebat. For a short time the city was quiet. Unus faber tamen. So one craftsman, however, domum perforum radians. What kind of participle is radians? It's present active, right? Radians. From Medere to return, so returning home through the forum. Subito tristes feminarum devorum clamores. Right, here's that same pattern. Tristes goes with clamores, and then the genitive that's being linked to that collective there that's of idea is put in between. So it's the tristes clamores, a sad shouts or cries of two women, and of two women is put in between the sad cries. They're closely related to to the sad cries, right? Because that's what they're being linked to. So they just put right in the middle of those two, of that collective. So the sad of two women cries, the sad cries of the two women. He heard. So he heard the sad cries of two women. 4. Two captives, magno dolore affecti, affected by a great sadness, were singing in prison. We're singing or we're chanting in prison. Me Deus, me Deus. Vocative, right? You'd be expecting de something, right, for Deus, but no, you don't do that. But me, you recognize as a vocative form, right? So, vocative, my God, respice me. Respice, of course, what mood? Not indicative, not subjunctive, imperative, right? A direct command, singular here. So look at me. Quare me deseruisti? Why? For which reason? Why is good enough? Did you desert me? Perfect tense, right? Isti, did giveaway. The U is a stem clue as well. Okay. So good times. So here's the titulum. Okay. All right, so that's Nux. Till next time.